/execute is a command that allows you to do conditional branching logic in Minecraft commands. You can think of execute as an if block. So you can perform a command if a certain condition is true, and if not, you don't do that command. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Mojang has sort of crammed all they can into this command to make it a super powerful tool for map creators and everything like that. And it's sort of an all-in-one command. A large percentage of all commands that I write in maps and things like that involve execute in some way. So it's an extremely powerful tool for creating maps. The core of execute is its branchable subcommand nature. So when you just type execute and you hit space, you'll see that there are all of these freaking options, which is kind of insane. And then all of these options have even more options. So, we could run execute as all players, and then we get the option to choose another subcommand, and we can just say at s, and we could say if entity at s, I don't know, name equals CrazyCowMM. Like, what? That's freaking cool. I don't know, positioned 2 blocks above my head. You could just like chain these subcommands infinitely. Another strength of execute is context. So if we did execute as, at A, at S, if block, here is air, and then we wanted to say execute as at E type equals husk, at S, at S, if block 1 is air, then this is going to check all players if the block at their location is air, then check all husks if the block at the husk's location is air, then the test succeeds, right? So this passes because there are no husks and I'm standing in air, right? So execute is extremely powerful for checking all sorts of conditions and things like that. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of its branching nature. So let's say we have this execute command here. That's execute as at A and at S. So execute as all players at their location. If the block, 1 block above their location, is air, so that's in their head, by the way. Then we run as all husks at the husks and run say hi. Okay, so we start with the base execute command. This then runs splits and runs as all players individually. So let's say we had 3 players on the line, me, Jim, and Bob. So now we have 3 different sort of sets of commands running for all of these individual players. So let's just go through one branch. So for my branch, we're running as me, then we move the location of the command to my location, and then we check if the block 1 above me is air. If that is the case, then we branch and say there are 3 husks in our world, and we say, okay, then as husk 1, at the location of husk 1, then we'll say hi. And then as husk 2, at the location of husk 2, we'll say hi. As husk 3, at the location of husk 3, we'll say hi. And then we go all the way back down the tree, and then we run as Jim. And we say, okay, at Jim's location, is the block 1 above Jim air? Okay, if it is, we do the Jim's branch. So we grab all the husks again. There are 3 husks in the world. Okay, we say as husk 1, at the location of husk 1, say hi. As husk 2, at the location of husk 2, say hi. So as you can see, I'm not going to go through all of that, but it's very branching, right? That's the whole point of very branching. That's the whole point of execute, is that it branches into these multiple subcommands, and then each of these has their own context and can perform actions based off of the context that it's within, right? So this may seem extremely confusing. I think that this could be very overwhelming. But as you sort of like see how execute is used in practice, I think this is going to make a lot more sense. And we'll just sort of click into place and be like, oh, of course. Like, yeah, no duh, So, yeah. All right, so now we're going to go over the specifics of each individual execute subcommand. So I'm going to start with some of the core ones here, and then we're going to move on to some of the more less useful ones, or ones that aren't as commonly used. I have them grouped into positioning, basically the core ones, position ones, and then some extra other ones that are useful but not too commonly used. So first we're going to look at as. Obviously this demonstration relied a lot on as, but we're just do a quick demo of, wow, we got a strong guy. Quick demo of how that works in this context as well. So Normally, if we were to just run, slash say hi, we get this message that says at and then hi. This at basically means that this command is running as the command block. That's sort of the name of a command block for say, right? If I ran say hi, you get my name and then hi. Now, if you wanted the say command to run as the husk, then you need to use execute as to get that command to run as the husk. So you can do that by simply running execute as, and then we're selecting the nearest husk, just because we don't want it to run as all husks, so that's not necessary. Then we want them to run say hi. So we run this command. There you go. He says hi. He's like, yo, what's up, man? And you can know that this is running as the husk, again, because that husk is in the commands there. And say does give this nice thing where you can hover over it and like see more information about the entity, which is kind of fun. Okay, so that's the execute as subcommand. Now let's go over the execute at subcommand, another very important one. If you were to run this command, say TP, I think is a very good example of demonstrating this. So if I was to TP this this husk up one, you might think, all right, it's going to TP the husk up one from its position, because like that sort of makes sense. But as you can see, it teleported him onto the command block up one. That's really weird. That's kind of odd. And the reason for that is that this command here is actually running still at the location of the command block instead of the husk. So if we wanted to change the location of the command, which as does not do, it only changes the context of who is running the command, we have to use at. So we can use at, and this is just the same as at n type equals husk, except the old way, because I forgot at n existed. And then say we want to set block 2 blocks above them gold. So now this is going to run at the context of at the location of a husk, right? So if we run this, who received my gift? This baby husk here. How congratulations. So he got a block placed above him. If we spawn a husk in this actual pen here, he'll get a block placed above him. So it's running at the location of the nearest husk. Again, this is just a little demo of chaining. So chaining is a very, very key part of execute. A lot of its functions are not particularly useful on their own, but they're very useful in conjunction with all of the rest of execute, right? So in this case, we're going to run as the nearest husk at the nearest husk, and then we're going to run as the nearest husk at them, and we're going to TP them up 1 block. So this is sort of very similar to the problem we had here where they got teleported above the command block, except now they'll get teleported above their location because we also changed the location of the command to their location. All right. Execute if is sort of the main reason execute exists, if you could say that, and is what allows its conditional logic. So there are a lot of conditions in execute if, and I'm just going to go over some of the more important ones first, and then we'll hit up all of them. I'm actually going to jump all the way to the end of this list here. We're going to go over execute score, if score. Execute if score is going to continue the execution of the command if an entity's score matches a specified value or another entity's score. Oops, get out of here, mister. So first, let's say I just wanted to check if my score of tutorial was 1. So we can do execute if score at p CCMM.tutorial matches 1. Again, that's the scoreboard on the sidebar here. We're just checking, is my score of that scoreboard 1? That makes sense. Obviously it's not, so if we hit this, it doesn't run the command, right? If I was to set my score to 1, there we go. And that succeeds and then continues with the execution of the execute command, right? If I wanted to check if my score was in a range of scores, I could do 1 ... which is going to be 1 or greater. So it'll work now. It'll work if I set it to 1,000. It will not work if I set it to 0. Right? And we can do the same thing in reverse to do less than. So this will work if it's 1 or 0. Oops. If it's 0 or 1, but not if it's greater than 1. So 10. Nope. But, I don't know, minus 100. Yep. And then we could also check between 2 very specific values. So we can say 1 to 5. So this will work if my score is between 1 and 5. So right now, No. If it was 1, yep. If it was 5, yep. 10, nope. So, fairly simple. If you wanted to compare my score of CCMM tutorial to another entity's score of CCMM tutorial or any other scoreboard, then you need to use one of the less than, greater than, equal, less than or equal, equal, greater than or equal, or greater than. So if I wanted to check if my score is greater than Jim's score, for example, I could use greater than, and then I want to use Jim, and then he's in tutorial. So is my score greater than Jim's? Yes, yes it is. Okay. Is my score less than Jim's? No, no it's not. So that's the execute if score. Fairly simple, I think fairly understandable. All right, now we're going to do execute if entity. So it's pretty self-explanatory. All execute if entity does is gives you a selector argument and then checks if that entity exists or if that selector argument returns success in any way. It finds any entity. So in this case, we're executing if there's a husk, if the nearest husk has the name of Bob. All right, and if it does, then we're going to say Bob, my man. All right. So if we just like summon any regular old husk here, see that nothing happens. He doesn't say anything. We murk this guy. We actually summon Bob here. We summon Bob here. Reaction time is not great. Say that, it's Bob, my man, dude. Hi, Bob. So again, execute if entity just gives you a selector and then succeeds if any entities exist are returned by that selector. All right. I think those are the super key execute ifs. So let's go through all of them now. And we'll skip the ones that I already did because, you know. So you can also execute if a biome somewhere is a specific biome. So we could say execute if the biome one block in front of this command block, which is where the gold block is the Badlands, then run, say, Badlands. So this will run if that is a Badlands, and in fact, it is. It's freaking wacky. How is there a Badlands here? I have to wait for the fill biome tutorial on that one. All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. Same way with execute if block. All this is going to do is check if the block at a location is a certain block. If it is, it's going to continue execution. So we can say, is the block one block in front, which is where the gold block is, a gold block? If it is, gold. But, you know, if we replace that with something else, not gold. Execute if blocks is mildly confusing, but allows you to compare two areas and see if they're the same. So, in this case, these areas are not the same. Can you spot the difference? This pressure plate is missing. Now, if we run it again, they're now the same. The setup for execute if blocks is sort of similar to the clone command. So you'll start your, first want to select your target area. So we do execute if blocks. You select the farthest negative corner of your target area. So it's this corner in this case, and you can tell that. You pop open F3. You want to find the corner that is at the very end of all three of the axes in the center of the screen there. And then we want to get a block at the check a coordinate at the farthest positive corner. So there we go. So that's our target area. And then we want to compare it with this area over here. So we again want to go to the farthest negative corner of this area here. Enter a coordinate. And then we do not need to enter the coordinate of the farthest positive area because Minecraft is automatically going to just check the same size area as our original target area. All is going to check all blocks, including air, and that's not actually going to work in this case. And then mast is just going to ignore air blocks and only check the actual blocks that are in the build. In that case, it succeeds. And you'll notice we also got a count of 17, which means that means that 17 blocks were matched successfully. Got rid of this. Let's see that it fails. All right. Super simple. All right. Execute if data allows you to check if data exists on an entity or storage, entity block or storage. So fairly simple. If we just, so right now this is going to check if the nearest husk has an item in the hand items array that has an ID of iron shovel. And if it does, it's going to say shovel guy. So if we just like summon a regular old husk here, I'm not going to do anything. This guy don't have a shovel. He's freaking lame, dude. But if we summon our special husk here with our little shovel, he's a shovel guy. because again he has an object inside of his hand items that has an ID property of Minecraft Iron Shovel. If you want to learn more about data selectors and things like that, you can go to the /data command tutorial, which will be linked up in the information card on the right and also down below. Execute if dimension can be used to check the dimension that the command is currently executing in. So if I ran this now here in the overworld, because I said execute if dimension overworld, makes sense. I could say execute if dimension nether. That doesn't do anything, and we'll get to this command a little bit later. But I can also run execute in the nether overworld. And it doesn't work because it's the freaking nether, brother. So that's how that works. Pretty simple. This is entity, don't worry about that. All right. Execute if function checks if a function returns a non-zero value. So we're going to have to break out of game to explain that one a little bit. Okay, so I have this fairly simple demonstration here where I have a function return 0 that just runs this command, return 0. And then this function here, return 1, which just runs this command, which returns 1. So extremely simple. And basically all that does is means this function is going to return with a value of 1. You can do this by using the return command, which is very new as of recent versions. Let's go back to game. So we run this command here. This is going to check the CCM return 0 command here. Just reload. We do this. And it's not going to work. There's no way it's ever going to work because this return 0 never returns 1, and if function, I don't think I ever mentioned this, but checks if the function returns 1. If we hit this guy, boom, yay, because return 1 always returns 1. So yeah, that's what execute function. It's not the most elegant there, but that's fine. Execute if items is fairly simple. We just summon a regular old husk here. Click this, doesn't do anything because we're saying execute if items on the nearest husk in any armor slot is any item. So you can use this star here to represent any item. And same with the slots, you can use it to represent any slot. So we're checking any armor slot to be any item. And if it is, then he's got armor, bro. So let's get a husk with armor here. There we go. So we got a husk with armor. So we run this command now. He's got freaking armor, mate. All right. Fairly simple. All right. Execute if loaded. Literally just checks if an area is loaded. So if we click it here, this is loaded because we're checking this area right here. But if we check an area, 1,000, this is nowhere near where we are, by the way. It's not loaded. Super simple. Get out of here. I don't want you. Execute if predicate. Basically checks if a predicate is valid or not. I'm not going to get into the syntax of predicates in this video because that would take an hour in itself. But this is a fairly simple predicate here. And we're just going to check basically if the player is using the forward input. So I'm going to say poggerts. So if we flip this on, let me actually put a lever here. So this on, nothing's happening, and as soon as we press W, we get poggerts. It's pretty cool. So that's what execute if predicate does. Again, I'll make another video on predicate, maybe next. I don't know. We'll see. They're super helpful. So for checking things like input, which you can't do in any other way. And finally, execute if score, which we already did. So that's all of the execute ifs, which basically, again, let you check conditions in the execute command. But execute also does a lot of other things. So we come over here. We can also do execute align. So normally, if I ran this command, this is executing at me, and it's going to run the crit particle just a little bit up, so it's not inside the grass block. So see, running a crit particle. That's pretty cool. However, if we then align this to XYZ, you'll see that it's always going to be running in this corner of a block, even if we go up a block. It's always going to run in the far negative X corner there. Negative X, negative Z, negative Y. You could also not align on that many axes. You could just align on the X axis, maybe. So now this is not aligned on the Z, but it'll always be at this back edge of the block. Or we can align only in the X and the Z, so now it'll always be in this corner, but the Y height will be variable. So that's pretty freeing. pretty open for your experimentation. Execute anchor allows you to, if you are running the command as an entity, change the position from the feet, which is the default position, to the eyes. So in this case, we're going to run at the nearest husk, and we're going to run at it, and we're going to run at its feet, which is the default again, and we're going to play the happy villager particle. So if we summon a husk here and run this, you'll see that he is playing the happy villager particle, one in front, and that's what these caret keys mean, one in front of the direction that the entity executing this command is facing. So he's running them down, but they're down here, which is not really where we want them. We want them up at his eyes. So if we do this, there we go. And all we did was change anchored to eyes. It is exactly the same command. So changes the position of the command you're running to be at the eye position of an entity if you're executing that command as an entity. So it does require you to be executing as an entity, not just at it. So yeah, that's how that works. Execute facing is going to basically move a position to face a certain direction or an entity. So in this case, we just have this command here, which is going to run up one block. So I haven't gone over positions yet, but it might be down there somewhere. But it's going to run up one block here. And then it's going to face the nearest player, which is in this case me, and it's going to face my eyes, not my feet. And then we're going to run a particle, happy villager, 1 in that direction. So what this does is create this interesting little circle effect around the command block here that sort of follows me, but is always staying 1 block away from the command block. It's always looking at me, but always 1 block away from the command block. Yep, there you go. Rotated lets you rotate a command as an entity. So in this case, we're going to rotate as the nearest player, positioned up a 1-1, and then also, again, run 1 in that direction. So instead of this one, which is always going to be following and looking at me, this is always going to be following my rotation. So it'll be sort of like out like this. So if you look like this, you'll see I can sort of like paint and things like that with it. Whee! Isn't that cool? And this does not follow my position, so as I'm moving around, it doesn't change. But if I rotate, it does change. I didn't make a demo for these because I didn't think it was necessary, but execute in lets you execute in a specific dimension. That's fairly obvious. Just be aware that most commands aren't going to work if you execute somewhere that's not loaded. So something to keep in mind. And then, it was in a lot of commands that we're using, but I didn't specifically talk about it. But execute positioned allows you to basically just move the position of a command a little bit, or you can position as an entity, or you can position over. So this is going to start from the top of the world and go down, and then motion blocking is going to basically say only blocks that stop the player, so not blocks you can walk through like grass or flowers or things like that. No leaves, also does not include leaves. Ocean floor is going to be the ocean floor, and then the world surface is going to be the world surface. So there you go. It's pretty easy. It's a very easy way to get the exact, the height of a generated position in the world. On is going to let you execute on certain specified members of an entity. So let me just write this out in here. So execute on. So you can execute on the attacker of an entity, the controller of an entity, the leasher, the origin, the owner, a passenger, a target, or a vehicle. So if I was riding a boat and you're executing as me, you could say the on vehicle, and then you would be on the boat that I'm riding. You could execute as the boat, and if I was riding the boat, you could say as passengers, and I would be the passengers, or as controller, and I would also be the controller of that boat. We can do a quick demonstration here. I just have set it up so that we spawn this guy, and he's got a baby riding his head. If we run this command, we'll kill the baby by executing as the nearest husk. And then on his passenger, we kill at S. So if we run this again, it's not going to do anything because ain't no one got a passenger around here. So execute summon allows you to continue an execute command with an entity that you want to summon. So basically automatically sets it as a target. So it's handy for very specific things. So if you wanted to, say, summon an armor stand and then run scoreboard players set at S tutorial 1, you could basically summon an armor stand with a score of 1, and you can do that all in one command. So pretty handy for scoreboard stuff and some very specific uses, but generally just use the summon command. Don't use the execute summon command. And then finally, execute store allows you to store the result or the success count of a command. So store allows you to store the result or the success count of a command into a scoreboard or a data or a block or storage or a boss bar. So pretty helpful, pretty handy. If I turn on this command, my current Y height is going to be stored in this scoreboard. And that is a brief overview of execute. Again, I can't go in depth into all of this. I think like each subcommand could probably get its own video and that would be fine. But I hope this gave you enough understanding to want to go out there and experiment with execute yourself and start using it in your projects. Again, it's a very important tool for most modern map makers out there. So hopefully this gives you some interesting ideas for things that you can accomplish. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more of this stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.